When I met Emily, we were both 24, hungry, ambitious, and broke in that romantic kind of way where sharing cheap takeout on the floor feels like luxury. She worked in marketing. I was grinding through finance, working 60-hour weeks, trying to climb a ladder that seemed endless. We'd stay up late talking about our future, our dream apartment, a golden retriever, maybe kids someday when things settled down. She always said she admired my drive. I admired her passion. It felt like we were building something real, together. But around our 4th year, something shifted. Subtle at first, missed dinners, texts like, "Sorry, huge campaign launch tonight." That became routine. She started dressing sharper, more polished, even for client meetings. I didn't say much. I trusted her. Or maybe I just didn't want to be that guy, the jealous one. Still, I noticed the way her phone was suddenly always face down. The new passwords I didn't know. The nights she came home smelling like hotel soap instead of her perfume. She'd roll her eyes when I asked if everything was okay. "You wouldn't get it. I need to focus on my career." That line stuck with me. It wasn't cruel, but it cut. Because I was doing the same, focusing on our future. I just didn't realize hers no longer included me. We argued more after that. She'd say I was too serious, too controlling, that she didn't want to settle into domestic life yet. I told her I didn't want to hold her back. I meant it, even when it hurt. Then one night, she came home quiet, sat at the edge of the bed, wouldn't meet my eyes. She said, "I need to focus on my career." Just like that. No tears, no yelling. She packed her things over the weekend. I didn't beg. I didn't chase. I just watched her car pull away, taillights fading into the dark. I told myself I'd be fine, that I'd focus on my own career, too. But truth is, I didn't sleep for weeks. Every place in the apartment looked wrong without her. The toothbrush she left behind. The coffee mug she used every morning. I threw myself into work like a man possessed. If she wanted to chase ambition, fine, I'd outrun the pain with mine. And maybe I did. Because 10 years later, I built everything we used to dream about. Only this time, it was mine alone. After she left, I had nothing but time and anger. Anger's a hell of a motivator, by the way. I stopped waiting for weekends, stopped chasing distractions, stopped hoping she'd come back. I turned that energy inward. Every 5 a.m. alarm, every late night in the office, it all became fuel. Promotions followed, then partnerships. I wasn't just working anymore. I was building. The company I joined as a junior analyst became my training ground. By 30, I'd left and started my own firm. Small, scrappy, 2 desks and a coffee machine that barely worked. I remember the landlord laughing when I signed the lease. Said most startups fail in a year. But failure wasn't an option. Not for me. Every no became a challenge. Every setback a reason to push harder. I stopped counting the hours. I stopped comparing myself to anyone. It was tunnel vision, pure and brutal. And slowly it paid off. Clients came, one by one. Then bigger ones. I hired staff, opened new offices. My name started showing up in local business articles. I won awards I used to think were for other people. Still, every time someone congratulated me, I'd hear her voice in the back of my mind. "I need to focus on my career." And I'd smirk, quietly thinking, so did I. But here's the thing no one tells you. Success doesn't erase loneliness. I had everything I'd ever wanted, except someone to share it with. Sure, there were dates, even relationships, but none of them lasted. I didn't realize how guarded I'd become until one woman told me, "You act like you're always 1 foot out the door." Maybe I was. Maybe part of me was still waiting for closure or revenge or something that felt like peace. And then, one random Tuesday morning, she walked back into my life. I almost didn't recognize her at first. The receptionist called me. "There's a woman here asking for you. Says her name's Emily." My heart actually skipped. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. But when she stepped into my office, it was real. Tom had touched her, softly but visibly. Same sharp eyes, same confident posture, just quieter somehow. She smiled awkwardly. "Hey, long time." I nodded, calm on the outside. Inside, though, I could feel 10 years of buried emotions waking up all at once. She glanced around the office, clearly impressed. "You did well for yourself," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I focused on my career." She laughed, short, uneasy. Then she hesitated before saying the words I never expected to hear. "Actually, I was wondering if you're hiring. I could really use a job." For a second, I just stared at her. Emily. The woman who once said she didn't want to be tied down. The one who left me for her career. Now standing in my office, asking for a job. It's funny how the universe writes irony better than any script ever could. I motioned for her to sit. She did, still composed, but there was a flicker of unease in her eyes. Maybe she felt the weight of what she was asking. Maybe she just needed the paycheck more than her pride could handle. So, I said, keeping my tone neutral, what have you been up to? She sighed softly, looking down at her hands. A lot and not much. The company I worked for folded 2 years ago. After that, I tried freelancing, but it's been tough. I thought, since you're running your own firm now, maybe. Her voice trailed off. I could tell she was struggling to finish the sentence. I leaned back in my chair, watching her. The confident woman who once walked out of my apartment without looking back was gone. What sat across from me was someone different, older, tired, a bit lost. You still single? I asked before I could stop myself. She gave a small, self-conscious smile. Yeah, never really found the right person. I nodded. Kids? She shook her head. No, guess it just never happened. There was a silence after that. Thick, awkward, filled with the ghosts of everything unsaid. Part of me wanted to be cruel. To remind her of the night she left, of the way she didn't even glance back as she packed her suitcase. Another part of me just felt sad. We were two people who once had everything, and somehow, we both ended up alone in different ways. Finally, I broke the silence. You know, I said quietly, when you left, you told me you needed to focus on your career. She nodded, almost wincing. Yeah, I remember. I smiled faintly, so I focused on mine. Her eyes met mine for a moment, soft, searching. I could tell she was trying to read me, figure out whether I was being kind or twisting the knife. Then I leaned forward, hands clasped. I'll think about it, I said. Send your resume to my assistant. She nodded, relief flashing across her face. Thank you, really. I appreciate it. As she left my office, I felt something unexpected, not anger, not satisfaction, just closure. 10 years ago, she'd walked out believing I wasn't enough. Now she was walking out again, knowing I didn't need her. I turned back to my desk, pulled up her email, and typed a short reply to her application. Position filled. Then I paused, deleted it, wrote instead, you already had one, and hit send. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the same city skyline glowing outside my window that I used to dream about with her. Only now it was silent. No laughter, no music, no shared plans. Just me, the ticking of a clock, and the dull ache of memories I thought I'd buried years ago. I replayed the day in my head, the way her eyes lingered on the walls lined with awards, the hesitation in her voice, the way she said my name, soft, almost unfamiliar. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. Not really. It was more like an ache disguised as victory. I'd won, sure. I'd become everything she once thought I couldn't be. But in the process, I'd built a fortress around myself so high that no one could really reach me anymore. For a moment, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I looked up her resume again. She was good, sharp, experienced, clearly struggling, but not lazy. I could easily have hired her. It would have been the professional thing to do. But professionalism had nothing to do with this. This wasn't about business. This was personal. When she said, "Can I have a job?" earlier that day, I saw more than a request. I saw a decade of choices condensed into 5 words. Choices that once tore me apart. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. I poured a drink, sat by the window, and thought about the man I'd been when she left. The one who'd believed in love as much as ambition. The one who thought partnership meant weathering storms together. That guy died the night she packed her things. The man who replaced him only knew how to build, not how to feel. But something shifted in me as I watched the city lights flicker. Maybe this was my moment to finally let go. Not through revenge, not through resentment, but through peace. I'd already won by becoming who I was now. I didn't need to rub it in. So I changed my mind. The next morning, I walked into the office early. My assistant was surprised to see me before sunrise. I told her to add Emily to the team. Entry level, 6-month contract, trial period. Are you sure? She asked, clearly reading the tension in my face. Yeah, I said. She already had a job. She just didn't know it yet. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. More like balance. The first few weeks were surreal. Seeing Emily every morning, walking through the same doors she once left me behind to chase. It stirred something I couldn't quite name. She was different now, quieter, more observant. She didn't try to impress anyone, didn't flirt her way through meetings like she used to back in her old marketing days. She listened, took notes, stayed late. At first, my team didn't even know our history. To them, she was just another new hire. But I caught the glances, the way she lingered a little longer when I spoke, the hesitation in her smile when we passed each other in the hallway. I kept things professional. Cold, maybe. Not intentionally cruel, but distant enough that she'd know the line was still there. Then one evening, she knocked on my office door long after everyone else had gone home. "Got a minute?" she asked, holding a stack of files. I nodded. She stepped inside, set them on my desk, and for a while, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Finally, she said softly, "You didn't have to hire me. I know why you did." I leaned back, raising an eyebrow. "Why do you think I did?" She hesitated, then looked me straight in the eyes. "Because you wanted me to see what I walked away from." I didn't answer, just studied her face, the same one that used to light up my mornings and haunt my nights. She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't entirely right, either. "I hired you," I said finally, "because you're good at what you do. That's it." She gave a small smile. "And because you wanted the last word." That one hit. I didn't deny it. She turned to leave, then stopped by the door. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "you turned out incredible. I'm proud of you." I wanted to say something, anything. Maybe to ask if she ever missed what we had. Maybe to tell her how long it took me to stop missing her. But all that came out was, "Get some rest, Emily. Big day tomorrow." After she left, I sat there staring at the empty chair where she'd been sitting. That old ache returned. Not anger, not desire, just the memory of something that once mattered deeply. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. The tension between us, once sharp and fragile, started to fade. It didn't vanish overnight, but it softened. We learned how to exist in the same space without ghosts whispering between us. She'd crack a dry joke during meetings, and I'd find myself actually laughing. We'd talk about campaigns, clients, deadlines, and sometimes, when the office was quiet, about life. She told me about the job she left me for all those years ago. It wasn't glamorous like she'd imagined. The big opportunity turned out to be endless 80-hour weeks under a boss who took credit for her work. She'd burned out, quit, and kept trying to prove to herself that leaving me wasn't a mistake. I listened without saying much. She didn't ask for pity, and I didn't offer any. But there was something in her voice, a regret she didn't need to spell out. One evening, we ended up being the last two in the office again. I was reviewing a contract, and she was finishing up a presentation. When she brought it over for me to check, our hands brushed. Just barely. She froze. So did I? It wasn't romantic, not like it used to be. It was heavier than that. A moment filled with all the what-ifs we never got to answer. She broke the silence first. "You ever think about how things could have gone?" I looked up from the paper, caught her eyes. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But I try not to. There's no point." She nodded, looking down. "Yeah, I tell myself that too." We didn't say anything else after that. Just sat there, the sound of the city humming through the windows. That night, as I drove home, I realized something important. She wasn't the villain in my story anymore. She was just someone who made a choice. A choice that hurt me, but also forced me to become who I was now. And maybe that was the point all along. The next morning, she left a note on my desk. It just said, "Thank you for giving me a second chance, even if I didn't deserve it." I stared at it for a long time before sliding it into my drawer. Weeks passed. The office kept growing, new clients came in, and life found its rhythm again. Emily stayed focused, always professional, never overstepping. But beneath the calm surface, there was something unspoken, an invisible line of understanding between us. One Friday afternoon, I called her into my office. The 6-month trial period was ending. She walked in, nervous but composed. "You wanted to see me?" I nodded. "Yeah, have a seat." I slid a folder across the desk, her performance review. Inside was a contract extension, permanent this time, with a raise that reflected how much she'd contributed. Her eyes widened. "You're keeping me?" I smiled faintly. "You earned it." For a second, she looked like she didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Then she whispered, "Thank you. Really." I leaned back. "You don't owe me anything, Emily." You did the work. You showed up. She hesitated, then said quietly, I never told you I was sorry for everything. Not just for leaving, but for how I left. I didn't look away. You don't have to. We were kids chasing dreams. You did what you thought was right. She nodded slowly. And you? You did what I couldn't. That line stayed with me long after she walked out. Because she was right. I hadn't just built a career. I'd built myself. Out of heartbreak, loneliness, and sheer determination. That weekend, I went through an old box of things from our past. Photos, letters, scraps of the life we once shared. I didn't feel anger or sadness anymore. Just gratitude. She'd been the fire that burned me, but also the one that forged me. The following Monday, she stopped by my office before heading home. Got a minute? She asked again, just like that first day. I nodded. She smiled softly. I've been offered another job, creative director at a new agency. It's a good opportunity. I think it's time. I felt a strange mix of pride and melancholy. Then go. You've earned that too. She looked at me for a long moment, then said, You know, when I told you I needed to focus on my career, I never imagined you'd take that line and turn it into a masterpiece. I chuckled. Yeah, well, I focused on mine. We both laughed quietly. It wasn't bitter anymore. It was full circle. When she left that day, I knew it was for good this time, and I was okay with that. After Emily left for the second time, the office felt different, lighter somehow. There was no tension, no shadow of the past hanging over the air. Just peace. She sent me one last email a few weeks later. Short. Simple. I start Monday. Thank you for everything. I hope you know how much this meant to me. I never replied. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing left to say. We'd already said everything that mattered. Through silence, through years, through who we'd each become. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself wondering what would have happened if she hadn't left back then. If she'd stayed through the hard years, if we'd built everything side by side. But then I'd look around my office, at the life I'd built, and realize maybe it had to happen exactly that way. Her leaving forced me to become the person I was supposed to be. Without that pain, without that hole she left, I never would have filled it with purpose. And yet, there was still a trace of warmth when I thought of her. Not love, not longing, just gratitude. For the lesson, for the push, for the closure. Months later, during an industry event, I saw her again. She looked happy, really happy this time. Confident, calm. She came over, we talked for a minute, and when she smiled, it wasn't awkward anymore. It was just real. Before she left, she said, I'm proud of you, you know. I smiled back. You already said that. She laughed softly. Yeah, but now I actually mean it. And then she was gone, melting back into the crowd. I stood there, drink in hand, watching her walk away one last time. No bitterness, no regrets, just a quiet, satisfied peace. Because she once told me, I need to focus on my career. So I did. And 10 years later, when she came back, unmarried, no kids, searching for something she'd lost, I realized she wasn't asking for a job. She was asking for forgiveness. And in my own way, I'd already given it. I smiled to myself, whispered under my breath, You already did. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel bitter. I just felt human again.